Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Katie and I am a new junior transfer to UC Berkeley. Also, if you are new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and to check out my social media links down below. Before we begin, I want to apologize if the lighting is kind of wonky. I switched rooms and I'm still trying to figure out the lighting. Normally I use natural lighting, but this room gets so dark during the day that I'm having to use lamps and studio lights, so please bear with me. Today I am going to be reading you guys the essays that got me into UC Berkeley, as well as the other schools that I applied to, which includes UCLA, UC San Diego, UC Santa Barbara, and UC Davis. I briefly touched upon the essays that are in the UC application in one of my previous videos, where I talked about my stats and the things that I think got me into UC Berkeley, so if you want to see that video, I'll put a little card up above. And today we're going to get a little bit more in-depth about what the essays are, what they're for, and then I'm going to read you what I wrote for my essays. So I've got my new handy-dandy iPad here so I can read off the things that I wanted to talk about. Before we start though, look at that case. I mean, it's perfect for me, right? I mean, look at my couch. I love it. If you guys want to know where I got this case, actually, I'll put a link down to it in the description box because it was well worth the money. I should also note that I am a transfer student, so this is what I wrote specifically as a transfer student. I'm not sure how that would differ as a freshman since you're really just writing about your personal experiences and thoughts. So the essays for the UC application differ a little bit from the common application and any additional essays that you would have to write when applying to colleges, because the UC application first of all calls them the personal insight questions, and how the UC system does it is they have 8 questions, 3 of which you pick and 1 of which is a requirement. Each of the responses to the questions are limited to 350 words, and then, like I said, the 3 questions that you choose are entirely up to you. So the UC's personal insight questions is a way to get to know you, a way to contextualize your application, and a way for you to tell the university who you are, what you can offer for them, what they can do for you, and how being a part of their school be mutually beneficial. It's really the part where you get to say, here's what I would tell you about myself if I got the chance to sit down with you in person. Here's the reason why I want to go to university and the things about you that make you a unique person. In that video where I did talk a little bit about the essays, I also mentioned that the UCs really don't care if you have the perfect test scores or the perfect 4.5 GPA or that you have hundreds of hours of volunteer. What they really care about is that you're a well-rounded student who has the capability to succeed in a higher education setting. And so that's why I believe that the UC personal insight questions / essays are so vitally important when it comes to applying to the UCs. Additionally, when you are applying to the UCs, you have these 4 questions that you have to answer, and those 4 questions, they go to all of the universities that you want to apply to in the UC system. The UC application is one application where all of the information that you've put and all of the essays that you've written, that one application gets sent to all of the UCs that you apply to. So I'll read out all of the prompts that I answered, but if you want to see all 8 of the prompts, I'll put them here and you can pause the screen to look at them. And we're moving on. I also just want to share my essays with you so that you guys can get an idea of what the UCs are looking for and hopefully to give you some ideas and to just, I don't know, hopefully be helpful. If you guys have any questions after this video, just feel free to leave them in the comments below. I will be answering any and all comments that I get. Okay, let's actually get to my essays. So the first prompt, which is the required prompt, says, please describe how you have prepared for your intended major, including your readiness to succeed in your upper division courses once you enroll at the university. Editing Katie here. Upon listening to myself read this essay back, I can see how my use of the word ancestor could be seen as problematic, so I just want to let everybody know that I see that, I recognize it. What I was referring to was our human ancestors overall, but as a white person, I do see where it is problematic to say our ancestors of the land since we are living on stolen land. Just wanted to point that out, and let's get back to the video. So I wrote, Susanville, California. It's the high desert where the air is dry, the summers are hot, and the wind blows dust into places you never thought it could reach. It's also the location of my first archaeological experience. Every year, federal archaeologists at the Bureau of Land Management invite volunteers to help with survey and excavation projects on federal land. When I first saw this position, I had to apply. I had never done anything like this before. It brought me many firsts, driving long distance by myself, cooking over a camp stove, and my first archaeological experience. This is exactly why I knew I had to go. I scrounged up the gear that I needed to survive in the middle of nowhere, and I was off. It was a week full of hard physical labor, the kind of work that you wouldn't do if you didn't absolutely love it. Trekking across rough volcanic rocks while a sweltering sun beats down on you, climbing down rocky ravines, and walking uphill both ways was hard. But all the difficulties fell away as I stood in awe before the petroglyphs left by the ancestors of the land. What remained was knowing this was hard work that I loved doing. When I returned home, I wanted nothing more than to go back. The call of our ancestors pulls on my mind every day. I brought that passion back to my education, bringing renewed vigor to my academics and my leadership as the president of my anthropology club. In 1 week, I had learned so much. Self-reliance, leadership, group communication, and new archaeological skills, including GPS and excavation procedures. Through the completion of my education in anthropology, I want to contribute to our understanding of the world, whether it be wildlife conservation, cultural preservation, or simply understanding our ancestors on a deeper level. The people that left those images on rock may as well have been etching the petroglyph of my life. My path is written in stone, and that stone reads anthropology. So I don't want to talk too much in between the essays because there's a lot to get through, but some of the things that I think I want to point out here is that this one in particular is written like a narrative, and one of the things that I learned when I was writing essays is to not write a resume essay. Don't just list out all the things that you've done, but try to tell a story about who you are, why this is important to you, and the things that you've already done in order to be successful in the future. So here you can see that I wrote a little bit of a narrative about my first archaeological experience, the things I've learned, and how that's going to help me be successful in the future. Okay. Second prompt that I answered was, every person has a creative side and it can be expressed in many ways. Problem solving, original and innovative thinking, and artistically, to name a few. Describe how you express your creative side. On most days, I look like a 1950s housewife. I sit down at my vanity to curl my hair, swipe on red lipstick, and put together outfits that capture that mid-century feeling. It's not because I view myself as limited to the home, or because I want to perpetuate misogynistic ideals from that decade. There's just something about black and white Hollywood movies, World War II posters, and old advertisements for Coca-Cola that appeals to me. I started wearing vintage clothing purely because I loved the aesthetic of the fashion and the creative challenge of putting together an outfit. It helps me connect to myself more deeply on a daily basis, but it has evolved into a way for me to express my values and beliefs in a public manner. As I became more involved in the vintage community, I came to understand the meaningful role that it has to play in society. Vintage serves as a perfect antithesis to the plague that we call fast fashion. Fast fashion ranks in the top 5 most polluting industries on our planet. Billions of tons of clothing end up in landfills where they produce warming gases as they decompose, and toxic chemicals used in textile production are dumped into our environment. On top of environmental impact, the rate of production causes companies to mistreat workers in foreign countries, forcing people into dangerous factories and working under unhealthy conditions. It's clear that fast fashion has become a scourge to our world, but vintage clothing provides an alternate, responsible way of clothing ourselves. It reuses, recycles, and repurposes the clothing of generations past instead of losing them to landfills. Wearing vintage as an expression of creativity sparks conversation, allowing me to bring awareness to the effect of fast fashion on our planet. It challenges people to think of our larger cultural norms of resource consumption by its very nature. Vintage clothing provides me with a responsible, creative outlet, making me a beacon to remind others it's the small things done on a daily basis that will change the world. So a quick comment about this one. Here, this essay shows the things that I am passionate about and why I'm passionate about them. And just like a side note, UC Berkeley is the school that I chose to go to, and UC Berkeley is super about advocacy and activism, and so here I was playing a little bit to that where I talk about the environmental aspect of vintage clothing. Okay, moving on. The next prompt that I answered was, what would you say is your greatest talent or skill? How have you developed and demonstrated that talent over time? For many people, the skills they possess are purposefully worked on and curated, but for others, their skills are born from necessity. The skills that I have come to utilize on a daily basis were formed under a need for survival. Because I grew up in a single-parent household and a single-parent income, my family tended to lack the necessary resources any family needs. Although being familiar with lean times are not exactly a positive thing in one's life, those moments set the stage for me to develop the greatest skill that I possess to this day. The older I get, the more grateful I am to have learned to be resourceful. During those lean times, I practiced my resourceful nature by scrounging at meals from leftover canned foods and utilizing every scrap of material for school projects. When it came to my sewing hobby, this skill helped me apply my environmentalism by helping me find ways to reuse and recycle. I borrowed fabric from other projects and used common household items as props for costumes. I had even scrapped an entire project after its completion to remake the materials into a new piece of clothing when I didn't have money for new clothes. As my family and I transitioned out of near poverty and into better economic standing, developing this skill out of necessity has stuck with me in more than one way. In my college career, resourcefulness has led me to the information I needed to find a major, become the president of a club, solve transportation issues, and learn everything I needed to do needed to transfer successfully. Being resourceful helps me to be successful and utilize my skills and experiences in any situation, whether it be taking on a leadership role, making a new dress, or transferring to a new school. Of the many skills I could possess, my resourcefulness has been the most instrumental to my success, and it will continue to be so as I transition into university life. So a note on this one of the things about college applications is try not to make them too negative. If you have a sob story and it's important to your life and who you are as a person, go ahead and write about it, but try to put a positive spin on it. The other thing I want to say is that in this one, I kind of maybe sound like I'm bragging about my skill for resourcefulness, but in the UC essays, they really want you to kind of talk yourself up a little bit. They don't want to hear, oh, I did this, or I did that, but I'm not really good at this. They want you to talk about yourself in a positive light. And then the last prompt that I answered was, describe the most significant challenge you have faced and the steps you have taken to overcome this challenge. How has this challenge affected your academic achievement? I'm not going to read this one on camera because it is a little bit too personal for me, but that is the prompt that I answered. And just to give you a general idea, I did talk about my dad passing away and how that affected the rest of my life. So there you have it. Those are the essays that helped me get into UC Berkeley and all of the other UCs that I applied to. I already pointed out some things about those essays in between reading them, and I am planning on making another video where I compare my rejected essays, because I did apply to the UCs once before I got in, with my accepted essays, so we can talk a little bit about what UCs are and are not looking for. But just to wrap everything up, they want to know who you are as a person, they want to know what makes you unique and what you're passionate about, and they also want to know a little bit about your life, because that gives context to all of the statistical information about you, like your grades and your demographics. Take this as an opportunity to do some self-reflection and really find the things that you think are important in your life, because that's what the UCs want to know about. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them below. I will answer anything that comes my way. If you would like any help or advice on writing your personal insight questions, feel free to shoot me an email, contact me through Instagram, or just leave a comment down below. Thank you as always for watching. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Check out my social media links, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!